All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to be looking at how to build your network. And I'm really excited here to have Adam Faris, who is a current UO senior. Adam, what's your major?
So I'm a general social science major, and I'm the applied economics and business doing that route. So
Okay. And one of the things in terms of talking about this particular topic, you have built a pretty substantial network over your 4 years here at UO. And I know that you and I've had classes before together, and I've been able to see firsthand and talk to you about how you built that. But before we get into that, can you give a little bit of background about what you are interested in and some of the interests and pursuits that you've done over these last 4 years at UO?
yeah, totally. Yeah. So my background is pretty broad when it comes to my involvement with the U of O. But I really pursue things and kind of did the things I did strictly because I was curious about learning them. And I'm very much so an experiential learner, and that's how I learn quickly, is by interfacing with other students and also just going out and seeking resources and then also connections, in the professional space that can help supplement the learning that we might do as a collective student group, but also online. And so just to briefly go over a couple things. So my freshman year started this one group called Duck Ventures, which was to have students really interface with the private investment space. So doing a lot of screenings of startups and doing kind of some initial diligence for some of these investors to determine if it was a solid investment or not. And then over the past 4 years or so, started the Oregon blockchain group with a few people, again, just to really dive in and understand the use cases of blockchain technology. And then just a plethora of other, ancillary discussions where we had some investors come and speak. And, I think at one point I had a couple of entrepreneurs come speak, just various different things that have been really awesome in kind of connecting the U of O and also the students with some people that I've reached out to kind of bridge the gap of and just promote education and learning in that sense. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, I know when you and I, when you were, I think, a freshman or actually a sophomore, one of the things that really I thought was pretty amazing was that you kind of dedicated an entire summer to thoughtfully building out your network. Can you talk about first off, why was that something you specifically targeted in the focus on? What made you do it? And then how did you actually go about doing that over that summer?
Yeah, totally. So kind of the foundational reason why I started to build out my network was because I one was just generally curious about how these people got to the positions and careers that they are currently or were in. And they also had a breadth of just experience in saying, hey, maybe this isn't necessarily the right path for you, but here's kind of how I did it. And maybe you'll kind of pave your own path. So I think to dive into that piece is that really just being genuinely curious about everything. You should just question everything. I know that's really cliche, but if you just have questions about technology or just the way we live life, there are oftentimes, I would say 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, there are other people that are asking those same questions, and maybe they're within a career that's trying to solve those, that's trying to answer those questions through their endeavors. And so that was one way I looked at it. But another was, hey, how can I really set myself up, post school, and that maybe it'd be not an easier time to get a job, but again, I would just be able to have that honest discussion with these industry professionals and saying, hey, what does the path to this look like once you've kind of garnered that relationship? So I think that's really important, is that sometimes people get that disconnect mixed up of, oh, I'm going to reach out to this person for the purpose of getting a job. Doesn't really work out that way. It's, hey, how can I genuinely be curious about this topic, this industry, this profession, and kind of go from there and really kind of curate that relationship with this person.
Smart. Yeah. What kind of tools or platforms or processes do you use to help cultivate your network?
Yeah. So it's definitely quite time consuming, which is, nothing comes easy. And I would say that for every, 5 people that you get a response to, you get, 15 to 20 that don't respond. So that's just something to consider in this. But then again, you kind of learn trial and error. So I think it's really important that you absolutely do not do some sort of copy and paste method where it's like, oh, this intro will work for this person, this person, this person. That's not going to happen. They'll totally read into that sort of ingenuity. And just to, on the opposing side, just to be genuine, right? So to have something really personable, really tailored, do your background research like you would with anybody and say, hey, look, here, Mr. and Mrs. blank, you don't have to say Mr. and Mrs., but here, so-and-so, I'm interested in your profession because XYZ, here are a couple questions I have. What do you think about this? And they see that you're genuinely curious and want to learn. And what's kind of crazy is that I would say 9 times out of 10, other students don't do that. So they're going to say, oh, this student took the initiative to do that. That's pretty cool. I'm going to have a conversation with this person. So.
Are you finding them like on LinkedIn, or how do you find like the people that you want to cultivate?
Totally. Yeah. So first and foremost, I look for mutual connections to provide intros. That's the easiest way to get to anybody and have just have that warm intro and really easy sort of transgression into a conversation. And then if that's not possible, then I would do LinkedIn. I think that's probably the second most easiest way. It kind of puts a face to who you are, kind of has your background of experience. Again, maybe even have a couple mutual connections that maybe you don't know too well, but you still have a way that you can reach out. Now, you do have to make sure that your message, if you don't have LinkedIn Premium, is pretty concise. But there's easier ways to just kind of connect in that regard. And then kind of the last way is, this is my bread and butter, but is the cold email. So there's totally an art to cold emailing. One resource I'm going to plug here is Rocket Reach. If you just plug in, and it's they kind of do email guesses for you. So it'll guess people's emails. And again, 9 times out of 10, the algorithm is in your favor. So it's likely just, Bob at intel.com or something. And that's a great way to reach out as well. But definitely start with the warm intro if possible.
Very cool. Any in particular, maybe if not names or types of people that you've connected to that have that you've been really excited to connect with?
Yeah. So I have a couple interesting stories. So one was all the way back in Duck Ventures, and this is probably the person people won't really know, but I'll start with this person, is Brad Feld. So it's kind of cool to hear his thoughts on how we could maybe structure a university group around, understanding and learning the ins and outs of venture capital. So that was kind of cool. But then more notably,
Brad Feld is VC, co-founder of Techstars, so
yes.
a player in the entrepreneurial. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Very well connected, very notable person in the VC space. And then 2 other people that are I was totally not expecting a response from was I actually got a response from Arianna Huffington. So that was pretty cool to chat with her about Thrive Global. And I reached out because she does a great job of having such a social or philanthropic focus in her endeavors, her investments, but then being able to monetize that in, again, a very socially conscious way where it doesn't seem kind of, capitalistically greedy that maybe you're writing about mental health, but you're also benefiting off that. So I just was curious how she kind of thought through those processes. And so she just had a couple email exchanges, which is pretty cool. And then the third person, which is super cool, was Mark Cuban. So we had a few, we had 30 emails. I did a search on, he oftentimes garners emails from random people and will respond via their pitch decks or whatnot. So I had a really concise email, and then he just started asking me questions about kind of the project that I was working on. Now, in the end, of course, he didn't invest, which is unfortunate, but it's just a super cool experience to kind of hear how an investor such as Mark White might, again, go through the process of, hey, how do I consider this person as an investable company or even an individual? So that was pretty cool.
That is very cool. Awesome. Know about that. So as you think about like what making all these connections, what kind of things have your connections been able to help you with? Some of them, like, they were one-offs. Some of them are continual relationships. What kind of things have you gained from having these connections? And can you kind of speak about what you've kind of learned from that?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, just to clarify, the Mark Cubans of the world, that's totally an edge case. Was not expecting that at all. But yeah, the more so people that you want to continue that relationship with, have helped in a multitude of ways to, maybe he or she has a son or daughter at the U of L campus and they want to get involved in certain things, to, shooting, job opportunity or internship opportunities to myself or other people that I know that might be of interest, and kind of having a sort of a connection of potential, graduates and seeking those jobs. So kind of connecting, almost like well, I'm totally blanking. The kind of job center helps with kind of like that kind of, kind of like that kind of interaction. But also what's really cool is that just the other day I was reaching out to one individual. He's involved with a large company in Portland. I won't name him, but it's called ComScore, pretty high up in that. And I was just curious to see if he had any suggestions on like developers, because we're kind of working on this project. And he immediately had a few in mind, reached out to all of them and had some really awesome discussions. And so again, it's kind of like helping with the skill or finding people who have unique talents to kind of finish up a group, so to speak, if you are working on a project. So there's a multitude of ways to kind of help them out as much as they help you out. So
very cool. I know it's taking you some time to learn like what has worked well. What has not worked well as you've tried to build a connection? I'm sure this was stuff early on that you found. Maybe it was like you mentioned earlier, where it was too much you asking what they could do for you. Any sort of things you've learned like not to do in terms of trying to connect with somebody?
Yeah. So keep the message to an absolute minimum if you can. No paragraphs, because obviously these people garner, hundreds, sometimes thousands of emails a day. So if they can sift through your emails as quickly as possible, that's hugely beneficial to them. But at the same time, not being greedy to the point of like, oh, I need help with this, can you help me with this? But having an ask, I think, is really important. So just clarifying that, maybe one sentence, hey, really appreciate your time. Be aware that they're be time conscious. They appreciate that. But yeah, just having a very concise overall message, make it personable, and having a sufficient, solid, like kind of conclusion-based ask has been huge in kind of my outreach. So,
do you do anything to like maintain your connections? I know a lot of times with students will be like, if I like this professor I had when I was a sophomore, how do I like maintain a relationship so I might be able to access things that they could maybe help me with when I'm a senior going out to get a job and stuff? What should I be doing in those 2 years or in between there to try to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, so I think that having a solid relationship from the first, in terms of like for example, from the start. I mean, for the professor example, not just going to class to go to class and sit there, right? But really being engaged shows that you are truly, again, genuinely interested in the topic that you're taking the class for, and then therefore they'll probably know your name and eventually kind of have a discussion. But moving past that, let's say, hey, maybe that professor is working on a cool research project or happens to know somebody that is in a profession that you're interested in. Again, going back and saying, hey, I was a student in your class. We had a great, relationship when I was in your class, and asking questions like, hey, what are you doing in this project? I'm curious because XYZ. Is there any way you could maybe provide an intro to this person or you're working on a project with? So I think that, and then kind of from the profession, like kind of stepping away from the professor side into more of like the industry professional side, I think it really depends on how close you are. But sometimes I'll kind of ping people and just be like, hey, just want to check in, let you know, here's kind of a couple updates, because I was at first hesitant, but I noticed that they're actually really keen, as long as you, again, establish that relationship early, to kind of hear what's going on and to keep them in the loop of projects and just things you're doing in general life, which is pretty cool. And then also sometimes, depending on how close you are with that person, if you have like their number, for example, sometimes just send a quick text, be like, hey, how's it going? Hope everything's well amidst this tricky time. And again, that takes some time to get really close to get somebody's number like that. But something like that seems to be pretty.
That's awesome. So. How are you using this spring online term to continue to build your connections? Continuing to do the same process, or is there anything? Are you finding the environment more welcoming for people to approach? What are you doing?
It's a little tricky because some people see this as a very opportunistic time, and some people are quite fearful, right? So it's a little bit tricky. I have noticed that the people that I've been reaching out to, whether or not I know them originally or not, have definitely had significant time in their hands to be able to get on the phone and just kind of chat and either, you know, talk about current projects, how can they help out in a very remote way, obviously. But other people, like I tried to reach out to a couple people that are working at a company called Magic Spoon. It's a cool D2C kind of protein-based cereal company, just because I was curious about their D2C strategy, which is direct-to-consumer strategy. And haven't heard a response back, and it's been a few days, so hopefully they do respond. But again, I think it's kind of, you know, they're like a medium stage startup, so hopefully they had some cash on reserve. But kind of what I'm getting is it's really hit or miss depending on the person and even industry actually too. So
that makes sense. Well, you are in your last term at the university right now. As you kind of look back at your career, anything that you would have done differently? I mean, one of the things, again, I admire about you is that you are very curious and you go out and make things happen. I'm interested to know whether due to time you didn't have time to cultivate an interest that you're finding now is something you are interested in, or is there a skill or something that you wish you would have done that maybe some of our younger viewers might want to think about as they think for their careers?
Yeah, I think that my initial thoughts on that are just that, you know, every skill is important when it comes to a team. So everybody has their sort of value add when it comes to, if you're a developer, if you're you know, a design person, if you just, you know, have that kind of business mind and you're good at sales, you reach out to people. So I wouldn't necessarily focus on that so much, but if I could go back, I would just try more things, you know, like my freshman and sophomore year, like we're young. I'm obviously still young, even going out of college. It is okay to take risks. If you want to, you know, put some time and put a little team together to develop something and maybe do like a little website, test something, or even create like a juice or some sort of consumer product, you know, like a bar or something, do it. Because you will learn so much and meet so many awesome people that, again, no matter what that endeavor turns out to be, if it's deemed a success, depending on your definition of success, or a learning experience, maybe a failure, but a learning experience, again, you have so much value can come from that. Just starting early, learning early, getting those connections early, because as you connect the dots, it kind of forces you to reach out to people. So I know maybe just, I'll try not to go into too much of a tangent, but just a quick example would be like, if you wanted to create a bar, it's like, okay, what's the manufacturing process? What are the regulations? You have to reach out to people and ask those questions that have done that before. And just, you know, the most important foundational thing is like, we're young, take risks. It's okay. Like, you can come back from these. Don't put yourself into debt, but you can come back from these early quote unquote mistakes. Again, I don't really call them mistakes. You're just learning. So that's kind of what I would do is take action more on my curiosities.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Adam. We really appreciate it. And if people want to reach out to you, can they reach out to you through LinkedIn?
Yeah, totally. LinkedIn, email if you have that. It's just apf@uoregon.edu. But LinkedIn would be probably the easiest way to shoot me a message. So
thank you so much. Adam Faris, University of Oregon, Senior. Thank you so much, Adam.